Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with some more philosophy. Today we're going to be diving back into the works of Friedrich Nietzsche. We are dealing with Thus Spake Zarathustra. We are into the text now. We are up to chapter 5, Joys and Passions, or section 5. I don't think it's actually chapters. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if you at any point in time get lost in the weeds and do not know what I am talking about, I have several playlists that are linked in the corner up here and are in the box down below, along with the source material, so that you can go back and see what I actually mean. I have a lot of content to go through, and I cannot always backtrack in the manner that probably should happen. I do try to start out with foundational things and then slowly work through the works. So at least go back to the beginning of this playlist and you should be able to catch up. With that being said, we are going to dive into the text. We will be stopping and talking as we read along, and if that is not your format, that is perfectly acceptable. But some people seem to enjoy it, so we are going to dig in and talk about some of the things that he is discussing. I'm not sure how many we will get through today, but I will try to keep it around an hour. Section 5, Joys and Passions. My brother, when thou hast a virtue, and it is thine own virtue, thou hast it in common with no one. To be sure, thou wouldst call it by name, and caress it if thou wouldst pull its ears, and amuse thyself with it. And lo, when hast thou its name in common with the people, and hast become one of the people and the herd with thy virtue, better for thee to say, ineffable is it, and nameless, that which is pain and sweetness to my soul, and also the hunger of my bowels. Let thy virtue be too high for the familiarity of names, and if thou must speak of it, be not ashamed to stammer about it. Thus speak and stammer, that is my good, that I love. Thus doth it please me entirely, thus only do I desire the good. Not as the law of a god do I desire it, not as a human law or as a human need do I desire it. It is not to be a guidepost for me to super earths and paradises. An earthly virtue is it which I love. Little prudence is therein, and the least everyday wisdom. But that bird built its nest beside me, therefore I love and cherish it. Now sitteth it beside me on its golden eggs. Thus shouldst thou stammer and praise thy virtue. Once hadst thou passions and called them evil, but now hast thou only virtues. They grew out of thy passions. Thou implantest thy highest aim into the heart of those passions, then became they thy virtues and joys. And though thou wert of the race of the hot-tempered, or of the voluptuous, or of the fanatical, or the vindictive, all thy passions in the end became virtues, and all thy devils angels. Once hadst thou wild dogs in thy cellar, but they changed, at last, into birds and charming songstresses. Out of thy poisons brewest thou balsam for thyself, thy cow affliction milk'st thou, now drinkest thou the sweet milk of her udder. And nothing evil groweth in thee any longer, unless it be the evil that groweth out of the conflict of thy virtues. My brother, if thou be fortunate, then wilt thou have one virtue and no more. Thus goest thou easier over the bridge. Illustrious is it to have many virtues, but a hard lot. And many a one hath gone into the wilderness and killed himself, because he was weary of being the battle and the battlefield of virtues. My brother, are war and battle evil? Necessary, however, is the evil. Necessary are the envy and the distrust and the backbiting among the virtues. Lo, how each of thy virtues is covetous of the highest place. It wanteth thy whole spirit to be its herald. It wanteth thy whole power in wrath, hatred, and love. Jealous is every virtue of others, and a dreadful thing is jealousy. Even virtues may succumb to jealousy. He whom the flame of jealousy encompasseth turneth at last, like the scorpion, the poisoned sting against himself. Ah, my brother, hast thou never seen a virtue backbite and stab itself? Man is something that hath to be surpassed, and therefore shalt thou love thy virtues, for thou wilt succumb by them. Thus spake Zarathustra, and I will try to remember to link the fundamental or the facets of God. I think it's the name of the video. It is the 7 virtues and vices is the topic of discussion. It is a Bible study. It is in the Bible study playlist. And there is a severe problem when you try to take the deity out. Now, I understand not being agreeable with Christianity. If you have done even the slightest bit of reading, then you will probably agree as well. That's probably going to step on some toes, and I don't apologize for that. But there is more problem than taking out the deity in taking away human nature from it. That is remarkably ignorant. Like, remarkably ignorant. People, as a whole, do not aspire to better. That is true. But on an individual level, you are continuously striving to do better. The problem is the imbalance, right? You're not meant to partake. We did this in the last video. We're going to do this in many of them, I'm sure. You're not meant to isolate to one of the 2 pillars. You got Boaz and you got Jachin, right? You got the dark and you got the light. You got the grounding and you got the energy. You got the masculine and you got the feminine. And you're supposed to walk between those pillars. You're not supposed to run face first into Boaz. You're not supposed to back into Jachin. You're supposed to go through the middle. You're supposed to be balanced in your stack. You're supposed to have your virtues under control and your vices under control, because you can overtake in a virtue. If you were going around hammering people in the head with your virtue, you're doing it wrong. 100% guaranteed. That doesn't mean that you cannot correct and love. You can, but you're probably not. If you're going out and you're hammering people with a book, you're doing it wrong. If you're going out and you're hammering people with God, you're doing it wrong. You're meant to be the example. You're meant to show the way. You're not meant to hit people over the head with books and words. You're not meant to completely isolate you from your vices, right? They are there for a reason. Every single one of the vices serves a purpose, and it is important to understand what point greed plays in your life. Because if you are greedy on a light level, right? If you're staying balanced in your greed, then you're accumulating the things that you need to perpetuate your life. But you can overtake that, and you can hoard things to the point where you can't even walk through whatever house it is that you happen to live in, or you live in funk and trash because you are overtaking in greed. You are so greedy that you can't throw away this trash. But you can overtake in charity, and you can walk around in poverty for the entirety of your life, and that is not how you were meant to be. Now, you can make the argument that if you live a natural prehistoric life of wandering and hunting and gathering, okay, do your thing, but you're still making preparations for the winter. You're still doing things, and you cannot give away everything. If you do, then you are overtaking of the vices. All of these monks sitting in some stone mountainous fortress somewhere, staying in nothing but meditation and going about their business internally, are doing it completely wrong. If you are truly serving God and doing the things that you are supposed to be doing to progress your soul, then you are out among the people. You are face to face with people. You are interacting with people, and you are helping them. But not to the point where you are disabled by that. That is not the point. You are meant to be the light. You are meant to be charitable, but not to the point where you have nothing. Not to the point where you can't eat. It is good to live in faith and to be assured that you will be taken care of, because you will. But that does not mean that you should give away everything that God gives you. There's a story that I like to tell because back in 2016 it flooded here, and I've been telling the story before that, but it's more poignant now. There was a flood coming, and this man was sitting on his front porch, and a guy came by and he's like, "Hey, there's a flood coming. You might want to evacuate. And he says, no, God's got me. I'm going to be all right. Well, the water starts rising and the road gets covered. And a boat comes along and it stops on the porch, right next to the porch. And it's like, hey, it's going to be flooding even worse than this. You might want to come with me. And the guy's like, nope, God's got me. And so the boat goes away. And then the man is there and he's in his house and the waters keep rising. And the next thing he knows, he's sitting on the roof of his house and the waters are all around him. And somebody comes in a helicopter and they stop right above him and they drop a ladder down and they say, hey, it's going to get worse than this. We're here to help you. And he's like, no, God's got me. And then he drowns. That's poignant because you can give away all of your blessings. You can deny the things that God is trying to bring into your life and call it faith. And that is a bad thing. Section 6. The Pale Criminal. Ye do not mean to slay, ye judges and sacrificers, until the animal hath bowed its head. Lo, the pale criminal hath bowed his head, out of his eye speaketh the greatest contempt. Mine ego is something which is to be surpassed. Mine ego is to me the great contempt of man. So speaketh it out of that eye. When he judged himself, that was his supreme moment, not to let the exalted one relapse again to his low estate. There is no salvation for him who thus suffereth from himself, unless it be speedy death. Your slaying, ye judges, shall be pity and not revenge. And in that ye slay, see to it that ye yourselves justify life. It is not enough to say, it is not enough that ye should reconcile with him who ye slay. Let your sorrow be love to the Superman. Thus will you justify your own survival. Enemy shall you say, but not villain. Invalid shall you say, but not wretch. Fool shall you say, but not sinner. And thou, red judge, if thou wouldst say audibly all thou hast done in thought, then would every one cry, away with the nastiness and virulent reptile. But one thing is the thought, and another thing is the deed, and another thing is the idea of the deed. The wheel of causality doth not roll between them. An idea made this pale man pale. Adequate was he for his deed when he did it, but the idea of it he could not endure when it was done. Evermore did he now see himself as the doer of one deed. Madness, I call this. The exception reversed itself to the rule in him. The streak of chalk bewitched the hen. The stroke, after he struck, bewitched his weak reason. Madness, after the deed, I call this. Hearken, ye judges, there is another madness besides, and it is before the deed. Ye have not gone deep enough into this soul. Thus speaketh the red judge. Why did this criminal commit murder? He meant to rob. I tell you, however, that his soul wanted blood, not booty. He thirsted for the happiness of the knife. But his weak reason understood not this madness, and it persuaded him. What matter about blood? It said, wishest thou not at least to make booty thereby, or take revenge? And he hearkened unto his weak reason, like lead lay upon his words upon him. Thereupon he robbed when he murdered. He did not mean to be ashamed of his madness. And now once more lieth the lead of his guilt upon him, and once more his weak reason so benumbed, so paralyzed, and so dull. Could he only shake his head, then would his burden roll off, but who shaketh that head? Who is this man? A mass of diseases that reach out into the world through the spirit. There they want to get their prey. What is this man? A coil of wild serpents that are seldom at peace among themselves. So they go forth apart and seek prey in the world. Look at that poor body, what it suffered and craved. The poor soul interpreted to itself, and interpreted it as a murderous desire and eagerness for the happiness of the knife. Him who now turneth sick, the evil overtaketh, which is now the evil. He seeketh to cause pain with that which causeth him pain. But there have been other ages and another evil and good. Once was doubt evil, and the will to self. Then the invalid became heretic or sorcerer. As heretic or sorcerer he suffered and sought to cause suffering. But this will not enter your ears. It hurteth your good people, you tell me. But what doth it matter to me about your good people? Many things in your good people cause me disgust, and verily not their evil. I would that they had a madness by which they succumbed, like this pale criminal. Verily, I would that their madness were called truth, or fidelity, or justice, but they have their virtue in order to live long, and in wretched self-complacency. I am a railing alongside the torrent. Whoever is able to grasp me may grasp me. Your crutch, however, I am not. And thus spake Zarathustra. And this is, again, talking about the overtaking of virtue, and then talking about justice delayed, and whether or not even the justice is just. There are times where violence is called for, right? It's not often that you will hear somebody who claims enlightenment that will say that, but I will. I am not nearly so foolish as to not realize that we live in this world and that there are times when violence is a necessity, right? If somebody is being a bully, then it is your responsibility to stop them. If somebody is committing acts of violence against someone else, it is your responsibility to stop them. But what is he talking about in the main here is this guy has decided to be violent, right? He went with the intention to rob, but he brought a knife, and therefore he knew that violence was inevitable. It may not have been tonight, but it was going to be at some point. You have made the decision to live your life that way. And then you have people who have made their decision to live their life virtuously, but they don't really seek virtue. They seek what society claims as virtue, and that is not necessarily the same thing. True virtue lies in knowing where your soul belongs, and that is a problem with Nietzsche. If you don't understand that life is about the choices, we are in the spiral of choices, what I like to call it. Imagine that you were born in the middle of a screw, right? Right in the middle, and you have a choice. You can either walk up the plane or you can walk down the plane, but you will walk. You have to move, and you either have to go up or down, and you will move. And moving up takes effort. It is much harder to move up than it is to move down. You will move down if you don't intentionally move up. And becoming complacent in your virtues is moving down. If you are so convinced that you are virtuous, that nothing can assail you, then most likely you are already doing something wrong. At a minimum, you are suffering from pride, overtaking pride, which is pretty terrible. Humility is a good thing, but you can overtake humility as well. Justice should not be delayed. Motivations should definitely be taken into consideration. And anybody who has decided that they are going to live in crime already knows that violence is going to show up. And while violence does have a part to play in this world, it is not supposed to be the go-to. It's not supposed to be the thing you jump to first, right? You're supposed to attempt to reconcile. You're supposed to attempt to ignore. But there are times when violence is a necessity, but do not plan your life around that necessity. That's what I got from that. You may get something different. If so, let me know down below. Chapter 7. Reading and Writing. Of all that is written, I love only what a person hath written with his blood. Write with blood, and thou wilt find that blood is spirit. It is no easy task to understand unfamiliar blood. I hate reading idlers. He who knoweth the reader doeth nothing more for the reader. Another century of readers and spirit itself will stink. Every one being allowed to learn to read ruineth in the long run not only writing but also thinking. Once spirit was God, then it became man, and now it even becometh populace. He that writeth in blood and proverbs doth not want to be read, but learnt by heart. And the mountains, the shortest way is from peak to peak, but for that route thou must have long legs. Proverbs should be peaks, and those spoken to should be big and tall. The atmosphere rare and pure, danger near, and the spirit full of a joyful wickedness. Thus are things well matched. I want to have goblins about me, for I am courageous. The courage which scareth away ghosts createth for itself goblins. It wanteth to laugh. I no longer feel in common with you the very cloud which I see beneath me. The blackness and heaviness at which I laugh, that is your thundercloud. Ye look aloft when you long for exaltation, and I look downward because I am exalted. Who among you can at the same time laugh and be exalted? He who climbeth on the highest mountains laugheth at all the tragic plays and tragic realities. Courageous, unconcerned, scornful, coercive, so wisdom wishes thus. She is a woman, and ever loveth only a warrior. You tell me life is hard to bear. But for what purpose should ye have pride in the morning and your resignation in the evening? Life is hard to bear, but do not affect to be so delicate. We are, all of us, fine sumpter asses and assesses. What have we in common with the rosebud, which trembleth because a drop of dew hath formed upon it? It is true we love life, not because we are wont to live, but because we are wont to love. There is always some madness in love, but there is always, also, some method in madness. And to me, also, who appreciate life, the butterflies and soap bubbles, and whatever is like them amongst us, seem most to enjoy happiness. To see these light, foolish, pretty, lively little sprites flit about, that moveth Zarathustra to tears and songs. I should only believe in a God that would know how to dance. And when I saw my devil, I found him serious, thorough, profound, solemn. He was the spirit of gravity, and through him all things fall. Not by wrath, but by laughter do we slay. Come, let us slay the spirit of gravity. I have learned to walk. Since then I have let myself run. I learned to fly. Since then I do not need pushing in order to move from a spot. Now am I light. Now do I fly. Now do I see myself under myself. Now there danceth a God in me. And so ends. That was 7? Yeah. And this one is about attitude, more than anything, right? Now, it's on the surface about reading and writing, which has led to one of the dumbest things I've seen in here. It is not reading and writing, being available, that is the problem. It is the lack of care for knowledge that is our problem. That is the affliction which astounds me, right? It's not that you're ignorant. It's that you have no desire to not be ignorant. And that's the problem with the reading and writing, not the fact that people can do it. It's that people don't pay attention to it, or they write stupid things. Not necessarily talking about him in this particular case. But it is funny to watch him write about being happy, right? About being above all of these things, about being, enlightened to a certain degree, when it is obvious that he had not achieved that, right? If you read through the foreword, you go back and we read it together, he suffered from depression and anxiety, and therefore he was not above the things. He was overwhelmed by being surrounded by people who did not think the way that he did, and he had to get out to the mountains so that he could think and complete. Now, there is value in isolation, don't get me wrong, but it is not the natural state of man. We are communal. We are meant to be working with one another and to be building with one another. That is the point of civilization. It's not so that you can have a thing or that he can have a thing. It is so that we can share in this thing. And that's not to say that all of our possessions are communal or anything ridiculous along those natures, but I want to help you to achieve things. I want to help you get better. But you don't necessarily have the desire for yourself, and so it is an unreturned desire. Without the desire to get better, then reading and writing is useless to you. It is pointless to teach it to someone who doesn't know, and that is probably where he was going with that. Not necessarily that the reading and writing was bad, but that dispensing of knowledge without the desire is a bad thing. Knowledge earned is knowledge learned, and knowledge given is soon wasted. If you are not spending your mindset into doing better, then you're not going to get better. If you're not aligning yourself with being above, then you will never be above. And for some part, it seems maybe he was trying to speak that into existence, which is a thing. I don't believe he was convinced enough to actually bring it into existence, though. Because manifestation is not just wanting something, it is knowing that it is coming. Like, not even just, I know, but like, I know. Like, fundamentally, I know I am sitting in this chair. It is that level of knowledge that the thing is coming. And if you're still suffering from a depressive state or an anxious state, which he definitely suffered with, then you have not yet achieved that mindset of, I know. I know that despite the fact that I get sad sometimes, I'm not going to be a sad person. I'm good. God's got me. Yesterday was a sad day. Y'all don't know because I don't share a whole lot of personal stuff here, but my son moved out yesterday. He moved not permanently. He's sophomore year of college. He's at LSU. He's part of the Golden Band of Tigerland. That's why I wear these pretty little shirts. And it was a sad day, right? My son, who I raised, is no longer under the protection of my house. He is paying his own bills somewhere else. But that's a wonderful thing. That is what I equipped him to do. That is the point of life. And despite the fact that I cried several times yesterday, it was not a hopeless cry. I know with no uncertainty that my son is going to do wonderful things with his life. And if he doesn't, that was part of the plan too. And I hate it, but it's true. And so knowing that the plan is better, knowing that the purpose will right, and it will, that is keeping the mindset right. If you can convince yourself that this divine thing that resides within your earthly body is immortal, and that it is here voluntarily to learn things from trials, it can completely change that outlook, and you won't suffer in the way that Nietzsche did. Section 8. The Tree on the Hill. Zarathustra's eye had perceived that a certain youth avoided him, and as he walked alone one evening over the hill surrounding the town called the Pied Cow, behold, there he found a youth sitting leaning against a tree, and gazing with wearied look into the valley. Zarathustra thereupon laid hold of the tree beside which the youth sat, and spake thus: If I wished to shake this tree with my hands, I should not be able to do so. But the wind, which we see not, troubleth and bendeth it as it listeth. We are sorest bent and troubled by invisible hands. Thereupon the youth arose disconcerted and said, I hear Zarathustra, and just now was I thinking of him. And Zarathustra answered, Why art thou frightened on that account? But it is the same with man as with the tree. The more he seeketh to rise into the heights and light, the more vigorously do his roots struggle earthward, downward, into the dark and deep, into the evil. Yea, into the evil, cried the youth. How is it possible that thou hast discovered my soul? Zarathustra smiled and said, Many a soul one will never discover unless one first invent it. Yea, into the evil, cried the youth once more. Thou sayest the truth, Zarathustra. I trust myself no longer, since I sought to rise into the height, and nobody trusteth me any longer. How doth that happen? I change too quickly. My today refuteth my yesterday. I overleap the steps when I clamber. For so doing, none of the steps pardons me. When aloft, I find myself always alone. No one speaketh unto me. The frost of solitude makes me tremble. What do I seek on the height? My contempt and my longing increase together. The higher I clamber, the more do I despise him who clambereth. What doth he seek of the height? How ashamed am I of my clambering and stumbling, how I mock at my violent panting. How I hate him who flieth, how tired I am on the height. Here the youth was silent, and Zarathustra contemplated the tree beside which they stood, and spake thus. This tree standeth lonely here on the hills. It hath grown up high, above man and beast. And if it wanted to speak, it would have none who could understand it, so high hath it grown. Now it waiteth and waiteth. For what doth it wait? It dwelleth too close to the seat of the clouds. It waiteth, perhaps, for the first lightning. When Zarathustra had said this, the youth called out with violent gestures, Yea, Zarathustra, thou speakest the truth. My destruction I longed for when I desired to be on the height, and thou art the lightning for which I waited. Lo, what have I been since thou hast appeared among us? It is mine envy of thee that hath destroyed me. Thus spake the youth, and wept bitterly. Zarathustra, however, put his arm about him, and led the youth away with him. And when they had walked a while together, Zarathustra began to speak thus. It rendeth my heart, better than thy words express it. Thine eyes tell me all thy danger. And yet, as yet, thou art not free. Thou still seeketh freedom. Too unslept hath thy seeking made thee, and too wakeful. On the open height wouldst thou be, for the stars thirsteth thy soul, but thy bad impulses also thirst for freedom. Thy wild dogs want liberty, thy bark for joy in their cellar, when the spirit endeavoureth to open all prison doors. Still art thou a prisoner, it seems to me, who deviseth liberty for himself. Ah, sharp becometh the soul of such prisoners, but also deceitful and wicked. To purify himself is still necessary for the freedman of the spirit. Much of the prison and the mold still remaineth in him, purer hath his eyes still to become. Yea, I know thy danger, but by my love and hope I conjure thee, cast not thy love and hope away. Noble thou feelest thyself still, and noble others also feel thee still, though they bear thee a grudge and cast evil looks. Know this, that to everybody a noble one standeth in the way. Also to the good a noble one standeth in the way, and even when they call him a good man, they want thereby to put him aside. The new would the noble man create a new virtue. The old wanteth the good man, and that the old should be conserved. But it is not the danger of the noble man to turn a good man, but lest he should become a blusterer, a scoffer, or a destroyer. Ah, I have known noble ones who lost their highest hope, and then they disparaged all high hopes. Then lived they shamelessly in temporary pleasures, and beyond the day had hardly an aim. Spirit is also voluptuousness, said they, then broke out the wings of their spirit, and now creepeth about, and defileth where it gnaweth. Once they thought of becoming heroes, but sensualists are they now. A trouble and a terror is the hero to them. But by my love and hope I conjure thee, cast not away the hero in thy soul, maintain holy thy highest hope. Thus spoke Zarathustra, and in this one he is talking to himself. There is no youth. He's upset, rightly so, rightly so. But lacking the final key to enlightenment, he lets it overtake him, right? Walking the path is hard. It is hard to abstain from the things that other people enjoy. Things that you probably used to enjoy, and then you saw the light. And you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that anymore. Maybe I'm not meant to hurt people. Maybe I'm not meant to be promiscuous. Maybe I'm not meant to drink every night. Maybe I'm not meant to. And so you start on this journey. But nobody's coming with you. You're doing it on your own. You're deciding for yourself, I don't want to drink anymore. But all your friends are still drinking. Everybody else is enjoying themselves, and they're living life, and they're being successful. And here are you suffering. It's because you have chosen to make it suffering to give up the drink. It's not suffering. You're probably better off for it. Alcohol is a wonderful thing. It can be used to loosen up, party, dance a little bit, get a little singing going, maybe even get a little meat in the milk, meat in the pocket, so to speak. But you're not meant to be drinking every day. You're not meant to be imbibing alcohol every day. It can destroy you to do so. But it is good for you to do it every once in a while. And so if you become an abstainer and said, I'm never going to drink again, then that becomes a burden, especially when you see people enjoying themselves. But if you're not hiding something, it's okay to have a drink. It's okay to enjoy yourself. It's okay to get drunk. It's okay to pass out. Don't make it a habit. It's not healthy. Don't get that twisted. It's not healthy to drink to excess. It's not healthy to do anything to excess, but people have problems with restraint, and that is a true thing. You're not meant to abstain from any of the vices. None of them. You're meant to partake, just not to excess. And the same is true with the virtues. And Nietzsche's problem is that he wants to embrace the virtues, but he wants to abstain completely from the vices, and that's not human nature. That's not part of the process. If you're not being tempted, you're not growing. If there's not a difficulty, you're not growing. Right? You can grow in good situations, but it's not likely, right? The plant. You plant a plant in your yard, and if you don't water it, then the roots grow harder. You probably didn't know that if you don't garden, but that is true, right? That doesn't mean that you can deprive it of water, but if there's just enough water, then the roots go deep so that they can find more water, and it gives a good firm base to your plant, and it can grow in a healthy way. And it comes up, and if there's no sunlight, it can't grow. But if there's too much sunlight, it'll wither it away. These lessons are everywhere around you. You're not supposed to abstain. You're supposed to participate in a healthy manner. Take control of the drink. Don't let the drink control you. Are you that weak? You are created in the image of the God Almighty. Now, I believe that there is not a sky daddy, right? I believe in the divinity. I believe there is a God and that there is a purpose, but I don't believe he is inside this reality. I don't believe that he can fully manifest as a man. I know that steps on toes, but I'm okay with that. I got a whole Bible study on why I believe what I believe. You are meant to be here, fully invested in here, not there, not the after. And that's what Nietzsche's problem was, right? That is the recurring theme here. There are too many people who are perfectly happy walking down the aisle, saying a little prayer, getting a little water, either splashed on them or dunked on them, and then going about their lives as though nothing has changed. They are not seeking the virtue at all. They say they are. They're telling you they are, but they ain't doing it. They go up back to work and they lie to their clients. You're not living your authentic self if you're lying to people. You're not living your authentic self if you're stealing from people. You are meant to be here. You have a purpose here. And it can be as simple as you talk to one person one time and you keep them from killing themselves. That's a wonderful thing. I've done it. It's wonderful. It could be the entirety of your purpose. Doesn't mean that it is. Doesn't mean that it has to be. You get to choose whether you want to help other people. Continue helping people. Be the actual thing that you want to present, right? If you are out there representing God, then you should look like him. People should be able to recognize God coming from you. By your fruits you will be known. And if you are living a lifestyle where people are questioning your values and your morals, then there's a problem, right? Nietzsche here was questioning himself. He is questioning his commitment to the things that he is trying to do. He is trying to make his life better, to seek the virtues, but he is doing it the wrong way. He is abstaining from the vices, and that's never going to get you there. It's not. I think we got time for at least one more. So we're going to go ahead and check out 9, the preachers of death, and this is probably going to play right into the theme so far. There are preachers of death, and the earth is full of those to whom desistance from life must be preached. Full is the earth of the superfluous, marred is life by the many too many. May they be decoyed out of this life by life eternal. The yellow ones, so are called by the preachers of death, or the black ones, but I will show them to you in other colors besides. There are the terrible ones, who carry about in themselves the beast of prey, and have no choice except lust or self-laceration, and even their lusts are self-laceration. They have not yet become men, those terrible ones. May they preach desistance from life and pass away themselves. There are the spiritually consumptive ones. Hardly are they born when they begin to die, and long for doctrines of lassitude and renunciation. They would fain be dead, and we should approve of their wish. Let us beware of awakening those dead ones, and of damaging those living coffins. They meet an invalid or an old man or a corpse, and immediately they say life is refuted. But they only are refuted in their eye, which seeketh only one aspect of existence. Shrouded in thick melancholy, and eager for the little casualties that bring death, thus do they wait and clench their teeth. Or else they grasp at sweetmeats, and mock at their childishness thereby. They cling to their straw of life, and mock at their still clinging to it. Their wisdom speaketh thus: a fool, he who remaineth alive, but so far are we fools, and that is the foolishest thing in life. Life is only suffering, so say others, and lie not. Then see to it that ye cease. See to it that the life ceaseth, which is only suffering. And let this be the teaching of your virtue: thou shalt slay thyself. Thou shalt steal away from thyself. Lust is sin, so say some who preach death. Let us go apart and beget no children. Giving birth is troublesome, say others. Why still give birth? One beareth only the unfortunate, and they also are preachers of death. Pity is necessary, so saith the third party. Take what I have, take what I am, so much less doth life bind me. Were they consistently pitiful, then would they make their neighbors sick of life. To be wicked, that would be their true goodness. But if they want to be rid of life, what care they if they bind others still faster with their chains and gifts? And ye also, to whom life is rough labor and disquiet, are ye not very tired of life? Are ye not very ripe for the sermon of death? All ye, whom rough labor is dear, and the rapid, new, and strange, ye put up with yourselves badly. Your diligence is flight, and the will to self-forgetfulness. If you believed more in life, then would you devote yourselves less to the momentary. But for waiting, you have not enough capacity in you, not even for idling. Everywhere resoundeth the voices of those who preach death, and the earth is full of those to whom death hath to be preached. Or life eternal. It is all the same to me, if only they pass away quickly. Thus spake Zarathustra. And again, we are dealing with mindset. It is entirely possible to live your entire life in despair. There is a mental alchemy that happens, right? And you participate in it whether you believe in it or not. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the Hermes Trismegistus playlist where we talk about it in some detail. But I'm going to relate, again, personal stories. Now, some of you are very familiar with this because this is a foundational thing for the channel, right? I am injured. By that I mean that I have 7 bulges and 6 herniated discs, 3 of which impinge my spinal cord, which means that they press against it. They constrict against the actual spinal cord. It is not operable. It is a problem. I also have spinal stenosis. I have degenerative disc disorder, and I forget what the last one is. There's another one in there. And that could be the way that I define my life. That could be entirely how I define my life. And for a couple of years, it was. And then I got to meet God, right? And I got to see things and I got to know things. And some of those things we have talked about and some of them we haven't. But there's a mindset that comes along with enlightenment. Now, my mindset for most of my life was this is a horrible thing that is happening, and therefore I have to get over it. It wasn't until I learned to embrace the challenges that I really started getting in the process that I am in now, and which is, in my estimation, the beginning stages at least of enlightenment. But a few years ago, I decided to take charge of my health, right? And the full story is on TikTok on my pinned comments if you want to check it out over there. But I decided to take charge of my health because I had gotten sick in 2019 and I couldn't breathe for a couple of months, and I decided, hey, I need to change some things. And when I started walking, it took me 45 minutes to walk 1 mile. There are primarily two ways of walking, and I talk about this in the power of perspective and motive and intention. You either fall forward or you fall backwards, and for most of my life, I was falling forward, right? I was pushing my way into my future, leaning forward as I walked, and when doing so, I had a limp because of my injuries. But somehow I managed to shift my perception and no longer walk forward, but instead walking as if I'm falling into instead of pushing into. And my limp went away. And I became able to push myself a little harder. Now, it has hurt every single day for the past 4 years now. 4 years. Almost 5. We're coming up on 5. It has hurt every day. It took me a year and a half to get up to 2 miles, right? It was 45 minutes to do 1 mile when I started. And it was now I'm up to 3 miles in just under 45 minutes, which is amazing. I'm still injured. Everybody around me would be perfectly fine if I sat right here and played video games all day long. I'm on Social Security disability. I have a check that comes in every third of the month. And it's fairly significant. It beats minimum wage by a good bit. And that's because I worked hard when I was younger, but I'm injured. And I would be perfectly justified to sit right here and play video games and do nothing. I could sit here and I can make my excuse that I feel pain every single day. I wake up every single day in pain. There is not a day when there is no pain. But it's getting better. Right? I think that my mindset and my manifestation is actually healing my body. I haven't gone back and gotten MRIs on my back, but it's better than it was, and some of that is from exercise, absolutely. But a lot of that, most of that, is mindset. It is mental alchemy. It is me deciding that the injury that happened to me is not who I am. I'm going to attempt as much as I can to overcome it. I'm going to accept what has happened to me, and I'm going to assimilate it into myself. And I'm going to go forward into life in that way. And that was a conversation this morning where I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I do my walk, right? I do the prayer walk. Y'all get to see part of that every day. I pray for you every single day. And as part of that prayer walk, I have been continuously increasing how much I do, right? I went from 1 mile, I am up to 3, and it's not easy, but I do it. I have also started incorporating other exercises within myself. Well, yesterday was a big day, right? You heard me talk about my son moved into his own apartment, and that apartment was on the 3rd floor. He has no elevator, but he has some roommates, right? It's three boys, and I went up and down the steps more than any of them. As an injured man, carrying boxes up and down them steps more than anybody, and everybody else is complaining. And today I got up and I went and I did my walk. And I come back and I was getting ready to do my other exercises, and my wife looked at me and she's like, "Isn't it enough what happened yesterday? Aren't you satisfied with the exercise from yesterday? Aren't you done?" And I'm like, "Haven't you not yet realized that I will not be done? No matter how hard yesterday was, no matter how much I wore my body out, drenched in sweat, sore so much that I could not move my neck when I got in the bed. I got up this morning greeting the day. I got up this morning thankful, vocally, as I am every day. I thank God every single day for every single day. I got up thanking Him, and I didn't even have that much extra pain. I did more work than 3 20-year-olds, and I didn't have that much extra pain. I did more work than their parents and my wife and my daughter and all of them. Injured. And I don't have as much pain. I can't, as of now, go and hold a job. There are times when this is just too much. But I refuse to let it win forever. I am earnestly grinding away from Social Security. I would love nothing better than to get no free check. I would love nothing better to be part of the tax base, to be paying taxes. I would love nothing better to be out earning a wage, but God's got different plans for me, and I have to accept that. But I can push against it. I can make myself the best me that I can possibly be. And that is the mindset that it takes. I don't fight depression anymore. I beat that shit. And that's coming from somebody who has tried to take care of themselves several times in earnest, right? Nobody knew that I tried to start a shotgun for 10 years, but I did it. I put it in my mouth right there. I pulled the trigger 3 times. I'm still here. It was direct intervention. Don't ever count on that, but it was for me. I tried to go home. I tried to be one of these people, and for years I kept it up. I lived in the victim mentality that I grew up in, and everybody in my family's got it. Everybody loves nothing more than to bitch and moan and complain about things that they could fix, but it's easier to moan about them. And so I don't deal with them. I have isolated myself from most of them because you can't let that into your mindset. You can't allow people to tell you all day long that things can't happen. Because they can. I manifested healing in my throat, right? I don't think that was this video. I think it was the last one where I talked about it. But I had a cyst in my throat, right? I went to the doctor. They looked. They saw it. They were like, "We can take it out." And I was like, "No." That was a big point of contention in this house. I said then, right, in 2020. Yeah, it was 2020 because everybody was still doing the stupid thing. I went and the doctor was like, "I can take it out." And I was like, "No, God put it there for a reason. It's not cancerous. I'm going to let it sit. And when He is ready, it will come out." And it did. I am able to talk to you here, and my voice is not fully recovered, but the cyst is gone. When I talk about manifestation, I'm talking about all of it, but I'm talking about that in particular. Because that's not because I was exercising. These other changes, that can be attributed to the fact that I am pushing myself harder than most people will. And that is a truth. But this thing right here, that was simply from listening to God. I didn't remove this. I didn't go to the doctor and then take it out. But it's gone. The thing that was compressing my vocal cords, it's gone. My body is healing itself. Now, it is not done. There are still many times when I am in way too much pain to function. That is a very real part of my life. There are times where I just got to lay down from washing dishes or from walking. That is true. If I turn too far to one side, I'll piss myself. That is true. But that doesn't mean that that's going to define me forever. I am manifesting different in my life, and I fully believe it. I believe it in a way that Nietzsche didn't. Like, he got so close. Every single one of these is so close to enlightenment. But it is not there. You have not crossed the threshold to the other side. You have not given up the despair. You have not given up the anxiety. You have not given up this, the mortal, which is where all of that lives. That does not mean that you are meant to live for after, right? That's where he's bitching about. That's the part he's mad about. Why not be a better person now instead of waiting until you die? And that is entirely valid. But that doesn't mean that you have to be working here to be the best you. Not what someone else says that you can be, but what you know you can be. What you were put here to be. You have to embrace these challenges. I embrace my injuries. I embrace all of the difficulties that I have, and some of them I am still working through how to even deal with. But it's going to be there. I am not disconsolate. I cannot be made anxious. Like even at the point of, I don't know how we're going to pay this bill, and it's significant. It'll work out. God will get us there, and He does every single time. It's amazing. And that's where we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I really feel bad for Nietzsche. I really wish he would have made that last final step, because it is much better on this side of it. It is. It's why I do this. Like, even in my sad moments, it's not depression. And even in my anxious moments, it's not anxiety. I'm not ruled by it. It just cannot affect me in that same manner anymore. And even my spouse doesn't understand, because she's not where I'm at. She doesn't understand it, and that's fine. That's part of her process. I'm here to be an example of that to her and to you and to whoever else needs to see it, because I am there. I am at the point where I don't have the regret about the past. I don't have the worries about the future. I'm here, and it's not a live life to the fullest, party all you want type of an existence, right? I am here for the experience of this life. I am fully invested in this part of the life, not in the ever after. That's coming. That'll be revealed when it gets here. I'm not worried about whether or not what I do is a sin. I worry about whether what I do or not is right. And if it is not right, I don't want to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. I can drink. I don't have a problem with that. I can smoke a little bit of weed. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to do heroin. It's a bad idea. It's not good. There's nothing wrong with weed. There's nothing wrong with alcohol in moderation. There is a problem with heroin, right? It's the same with spiritual matters. I know what is right, and I stand on it. And I know what is wrong, and I stand against it. And that is as simple as it can be. Stand for your life here now. You shouldn't be sinning, but you know what those sins are. You don't need a book to tell you. If you like what I'm doing here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. Let me know if you appreciate it or don't. If you agree or disagree. If you let it stay respectful, I let it stay up. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you were here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pit Steak. Peace.